I'm Lindsay Foster, 35 years old, an interior designer who built my life from the ground up. My pride and joy. A sleek, modern apartment in San Antonio's Pearl District, every inch of it paid for and designed by me. It's not just a home, it's proof of everything I've fought for, every late night, every hustle. I never imagined my own family would try to rip it away. A few weeks ago, my parents called a family meeting right here in my living room. I thought it was just a catch up, maybe a chance to reconnect after years of distance. But when they sat down with my younger sister and her two kids, the air shifted. My father cleared his throat and said, "We've decided your sister needs this apartment more than you do." My stomach dropped. My sister, sitting there with a smug look, didn't even flinch. Her kids were playing on my floor like they already owned the place. I'd spent years turning this space into my sanctuary, and now my own parents were demanding I hand it over like my hard work meant nothing. What they didn't know was that I'd uncovered something about my sister's plans, something they'd never see coming. I wasn't about to let my life's work slip through my fingers. Stick around because what I did next shocked them all. Have you ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours against family? Share your story in the comments below. When I was little, I grew up in San Antonio, raised mostly by my grandmother in a cozy house with a creaky porch swing. My parents worked long hours in Austin, about an hour's drive away, so I spent my early years with grandma's warm hugs and stories of old Texas. I was 5 when my younger sister came along and everything changed. My parents moved back to San Antonio, bringing her into our little world. She was a tiny bundle of energy, always giggling, and I adored her. We'd spend hours building blanket forts or racing bikes down the street, laughing until our sides hurt. I thought we'd be inseparable forever. But even back then, I noticed the difference. My parents doted on her new dolls, shiny dresses, anything she pointed at in a store. I got hand-me-downs or a pat on the head told to be a good big sister. I didn't mind at first. I loved seeing her smile. But the gap widened as we grew. When I was 12, Grandma passed away and it hit me hard. She was my rock, the one who saw me. My parents barely noticed my grief. They were too busy planning a birthday party for my sister, complete with a rented bounce house and a towering cake. I got a card and a used book that year. School became my escape. I threw myself into projects, sketching room designs on notebook margins, dreaming of a future where I could build something of my own. My sister, though, got the royal treatment. When she turned 16, my parents bought her a brand new convertible cherry red gleaming in the driveway. I was still riding my bike to part-time jobs, saving every penny for college. When I asked why I didn't get a car, my father said, "She needs it more. You're fine." My mother just nodded like it was obvious. I swallowed the hurt, but it stung, a quiet ache that never quite left. In the years that followed, the favoritism was undeniable. My sister got private tutors, dance lessons, even a trip to Europe for cultural experience. I worked weekends at a local diner, scraping together money for art supplies. I'd come home to find her sprawled on the couch, new phone in hand, while my parents praised her for some minor achievement. I tried talking to them once, asking why things felt so uneven. My mother sighed, saying, "You're strong, you don't need as much help." My father added, "Family means sacrifice." I nodded, but inside I felt invisible. Looking back, I see how it shaped me. Every rejection pushed me to work harder to prove I didn't need their approval, but it also built a wall between us. My sister and I drifted apart, our childhood closeness buried under years of resentment. I'd see her at family dinners, flashing her charm while my parents hung on her every word. I'd smile, play the part, but the sting of being overlooked never faded. By the time I hit 18, I was done waiting for my parents' approval. I applied to a design school in Dallas, scraping together scholarships and loans to cover tuition. My parents didn't offer a cent, they were too busy funding my sister's expensive private school with supplementary tutoring classes. I worked nights at a coffee shop, sketching floor plans between shifts, determined to carve my own path. Every rejection from my family fueled me, By my junior year, I landed an internship with a top interior design firm in San Antonio. I'd spend hours perfecting mood boards, learning how to transform spaces into something extraordinary. It wasn't just work, it was my way of proving I didn't need their help. When I landed my first internship, I called home, hoping they'd be proud. My mother said, "That's nice, but your sister just got cast in a play." I stopped calling after that. After graduation, I taked freelance gigs to build my reputation. I saved every dollar dreaming of owning a place that was mine alone. 5 years ago, I founded a rundown apartment in the Pearl District, a gem hidden beneath cracked walls and outdated fixtures. I bought it with my savings, pouring my heart into every detail: custom cabinetry, sleek lighting, floors I sanded myself. It wasn't just a home. It was my masterpiece worth over $300,000. I'd walk through it at night, running my fingers over the countertops, feeling like I'd finally made it. My parents never visited, never asked about my work. I told myself it didn't matter, but deep down, I wished they'd see what I'd built. My sister, meanwhile, took a different road. She breezed through college, more focused on parties than grades. My parents paid for everything: her tuition, her apartment, even her spring break trips. She met Craig Wilson, a charming business major, and they married right after graduation. I went to the wedding, watching my parents beam as they paid for a lavish venue. I was happy for her, but the contrast stung. Within 2 years, she had Ethan, then Mia, and my parents showered them with gifts: strollers, clothes, a college fund before they could walk. I'd send birthday cards, but I rarely saw them. We'd grown so far apart. Then her life unraveled. Her startup, a boutique selling overpriced athleisure, tanked after she mismanaged funds and ignored market trends. By then, she and Craig were fighting constantly. He walked out last year, leaving her with Ethan, now 8, and Mia, 6, in a cramped rented apartment on the edge of San Antonio. She was drowning in debt, $50,000 from what I'd heard through family whispers. My parents called me once asking if I could help out. I offered to connect her with a financial advisor, but they wanted cash, not advice. I said no, feeling a familiar pang of guilt, but I wasn't about to bail her out. She started showing up at family gatherings, always with a sob story. Ethan and Mia would cling to her wide-eyed while she talked about tough times and needing a break. My parents ate it up, offering her money, groceries, even paying her rent. I'd sit there forcing a smile, wondering why they never saw through her. She'd flash that same charming grin from our childhood, and they'd melt. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was playing them, using her kids as props to keep the handouts coming. It made my skin crawl, but I stayed quiet, hoping distance would keep me out of her mess. I thought I'd moved past it, built a life they couldn't touch, but that family meeting in my apartment brought it all rushing back. A few weeks ago, my parents called, insisting on a family meeting at my apartment in the Pearl District. I hesitated, but they sounded urgent, so I agreed, hoping for a chance to reconnect. I spent the morning tidying up, making sure every surface gleamed proud of the space I'd built. When they arrived, my parents, my sister, and her 2 kids, Ethan and Mia, the air felt heavy. My mother carried a casserole, a rare gesture, and my father's face was stern, like he was about to deliver bad news. My sister walked in, her usual charm dialed up, while Ethan and Mia trailed behind with backpacks full of toys. We sat in my living room, the kids fidgeting on my cream-colored sofa. I offered coffee, trying to keep things light, but my father cut through the small talk. "We need to discuss something important," he said, folding his hands. "Your sister and her kids need a stable home. We think you should give her this apartment." His words hit like a punch I didn't see coming. My mother nodded, adding, "It's for the grandchildren. They deserve better than that rental they're in." I stared at them, my mind reeling. This was my home, my achievement paid for with years of sweat and sacrifice. Give it away, just like that? My sister didn't even look surprised. She leaned back, sipping her coffee, acting like the decision was already made. "It's a great place for the kids," she said, glancing around like she was appraising it. Plenty of space good schools nearby. I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. This is my home, I said, voice tight. I worked for this. Why can't she figure things out like I did? My father's eyes narrowed. Family means helping each other. She's struggling. You're not. My mother chimed in. You're doing fine. You can find another place. Their words echoed the same dismissals from my childhood, and it burned. Then things got worse. Ethan and Mia, bored with the tension, pulled out markers and started drawing on my walls bright red scribbles across the pristine paint I'd chosen so carefully. I froze, expecting my sister to stop them, but she just shrugged. Kids will be kids, she said, not even looking up. I rushed over gently, taking the markers, but the damage was done. Those walls were part of my sanctuary, and she let her kids treat it like a playground. I looked at her, waiting for an apology, but she just smiled like she owned the place already. My parents didn't say a word, their silence louder than any lecture. After they left, I stood in my living room staring at the red streaks on my walls. I felt hollow, like my own family had walked in and stripped away everything I'd built. It wasn't just about the apartment, it was the betrayal, the way they assumed my life was less important. I tried to clean the walls, scrubbing until my hands ached, but the marks wouldn't budge. Every smudge felt like a reminder that my sister saw my home as hers to take. My parents' words kept replaying. She needs it more. I wanted to scream to tell them how unfair it was, but I knew they wouldn't listen. They never had. I sat on my couch that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how it had come to this. I'd spent years building a life they couldn't touch, only for them to demand I hand it over. But something else gnawed at me, my sister's smugness, the way she acted like she was entitled to my home. It didn't add up. She wasn't just desperate, she was calculating. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her plan, something my parents didn't see. I wasn't ready to give up, not yet. I wasn't ready to surrender, but my sister wasn't done pushing. Days after the family meeting, she started showing up at my apartment unannounced. She'd knock, all smiles, with Ethan and Mia in tow, their backpacks spilling over with toys. I'd let them in, hoping for a civil visit, but it was always chaos. Toys littered my hardwood floors, juice stains appeared on my rugs, and once Mia knocked over a lamp I'd spent weeks restoring. I asked my sister to keep an eye on them, but she'd just laugh it off. Just a little. It's no big deal, she'd say, scrolling through her phone like she lived there. Each visit felt like an invasion, like she was testing how far she could go. It got worse. One afternoon, I came home to find my kitchen a mess, cereal spilled on the counter, dishes piled in the sink. She'd let herself in with a spare key I'd given my parents years ago for emergencies. I confronted her, voice shaking. You can't just walk in like this, I said. She shrugged, tossing her hair. I thought we were family. Isn't this what families do? Her nonchalance made my blood boil, but I held back, not wanting to scare the kids. I changed the locks the next day, but the damage was already done. My home didn't feel like mine anymore. Then I found something that stopped me cold. While cleaning up after one of her visits, I noticed a business card on my coffee table, Donna Clark, a local real estate agent. It wasn't mine. I called Donna, pretending to be curious about the market. She hesitated, then admitted my sister had reached out to get my apartment appraised. She said it was for a family decision, Donna told me. My heart sank. This wasn't about needing a home for her kids. She was planning to sell my place, likely to clear her debts. I hung up, hands trembling, realizing how far she was willing to go. I needed answers, so I turned to someone who'd always been straight with me, my Aunt Martha Hughes. She's my mother's older sister, sharp and no nonsense, the one who never bought into my sister's charm. I met her at a cafe near the Pearl District, spilling everything, the meeting, the wall scribbles, the real estate agent. Martha's face darkened. That sounds like her, she said, stirring her coffee. Then she dropped a bomb. Years ago, when I was 12, my grandmother passed, leaving behind a small inheritance, about $20,000. My parents meant to split it between me and my sister, But she convinced them I didn't need it, claiming I was fine on my own. They gave her the whole sum, and she blew it on a car and a trip to Vegas. I sat there stunned, the betrayal cutting deeper than I expected. I needed proof to protect myself. A colleague, Kevin Ross, who specialized in property law, agreed to help. I told him about the appraisal and my aunt's story, and he dug into my sister's finances. It didn't take long to confirm the rumors she was $50,000 in debt tied to her failed boutique and unpaid credit cards. Kevin found no trace of her consulting my parents about the appraisal. She'd acted alone behind their backs. "She's desperate," he said, handing me the report. "People like that will do anything." I thanked him, my mind racing. My sister wasn't just entitled, she was scheming using my parents' trust to manipulate them. I thought about confronting her, but I knew she'd twist it, play the victim like she always did. My parents would probably take her side just like they did with the inheritance. I felt trapped, cornered in my own home by the family I'd spent years trying to please. But I wasn't helpless. I'd worked too hard to let her take everything. It was time to fight back. Enough was enough, and I was ready to take control. I wasn't going to let my sister's schemes unravel everything I'd built. First, I called Kevin Ross, my colleague, who'd helped uncover her debts. We met at his office, and I laid out my plan: protect my apartment at all costs. He suggested transferring ownership to a family trust, a legal move to lock it out of her reach. I hesitated. Trusts sounded complicated, but Kevin assured me it was airtight. He brought in Virginia Lane, a sharp attorney he'd worked with before, to handle the paperwork. Together, we set up a trust naming Kevin and Virginia as co-trustees alongside me. My apartment, my life's work, was now untouchable, no matter what my sister tried. With that secured, I knew I had to confront my family head-on. I invited my parents, Thomas and Carol, and my sister to a meeting at a quiet restaurant in the Pearl District, a neutral spot where I could lay everything bare. I spent the night before preparing, rehearsing every word, my anger mixing with a strange calm. I wasn't just fighting for my home, I was fighting for myself. For every year, I'd been pushed aside. When the day came, I arrived early, clutching Kevin's financial report and a copy of the trust documents, ready to end this. They walked in together, my parents looking cautious, my sister with her usual confident smirk. Ethan and Mia weren't there. She'd left them with a sitter, which told me she knew this wasn't a casual chat. We ordered drinks, but the small talk died fast. I took a deep breath and started. "I know what you've been doing," I said, looking straight at my sister. "You contacted Donna Clark to appraise my apartment, planning to sell it behind my back." Her face froze, the smirk gone. My parents exchanged glances, confused. "That's not true," she stammered, but I cut her off, sliding Kevin's report across the table. "You're $50,000 in debt," I said. "You thought you could take my home to fix your mess." My father's jaw tightened. "What's this about?" he demanded. I turned to him, my voice steady. "She's been manipulating you just like she did with Grandma's inheritance." I explained what Martha Hughes had told me, how my sister convinced them to give her my share of the $20,000 when I was 12. My mother's eyes widened, but she stayed silent. My sister tried to interrupt, her voice rising. "You're twisting everything." I needed help. I didn't flinch. "You've been using your kids, your sob stories, to get what you want," I said. "But I'm done letting you walk over me." The restaurant felt smaller, the air thick with tension. My parents looked shaken, like they were seeing their daughter for the first time. I pulled out the trust documents, laying them on the table. "This apartment is in a trust now," I said. "It's protected. You can't touch it, no matter how much you push." My sister's face turned red, her hands shaking. "You're so selfish," she spat. "What about my kids?" I leaned forward, my voice low. "Your kids deserve better than a mother who'd steal from family to save herself." My father tried to mediate. "Let's calm down," he said, but I shook my head. "No, I've spent my life calming down, taking less while you gave her everything. I'm done." I looked at my parents, then my sister, and said the words I'd been holding back for years. "I'm cutting you out of my life. All of you." My mother gasped, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. You chose her over me again and again. I can't keep hoping you'll change. I stood leaving the documents on the table and walked out. The Pearl District's lights blurred as I stepped into the night, my heart pounding but lighter than it had been in years. I'd spent decades trying to earn their love only to realize I didn't need it. My home, my life was mine, and I'd fight for it no matter who stood in my way. Walking away from that restaurant felt like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. I didn't look back, didn't answer the texts that pinged my phone from my mother pleading for me to reconsider. I'd made my choice, and for the first time, it was mine alone. The fallout came fast. My parents, Thomas and Carol, were rattled by the truth I'd laid out. They called my sister demanding answers about the appraisal and the inheritance she'd swindled years ago. She tried her usual tactics, tears, excuses, blaming everyone but herself. But this time, they didn't budge. My Aunt Martha Hughes had already warned them about her patterns, and the evidence from Kevin's report was undeniable. They cut her off, refusing to pay her rent or clear her debts. She was on her own, forced to face the $50,000 she owed without their safety net. I heard through Martha that my sister struggled to keep up. She took a job as a retail manager, working long hours to cover her bills, but the debt weighed heavy. Ethan and Mia were enrolled in public school, no longer propped up by my parents' generosity. She sent me a letter, once a half-hearted apology mixed with complaints about how unfair life was. I didn't respond. Her words felt hollow, like another attempt to pull me back into her chaos. I'd spent years cleaning up after her messes in my heart, her entitlement, her manipulation, and I was done. My parents tried reaching out too, leaving voicemails about family unity. I deleted them. Their silence during my childhood, their favoritism, had built a wall I wasn't ready to tear down. Instead, I turned to my life I'd built from scratch. My career as an interior designer was thriving. I landed a contract with a boutique hotel in the Pearl District, transforming their lobby into a space that turned heads. My days were filled with client meetings, sketching new designs, and sourcing materials that told a story. I leaned on my friends Kevin Ross, who'd become more than a colleague, and others who'd cheered me on when my family hadn't. We'd meet for drinks at La Gloria, laughing over tacos and margaritas, their support grounding me in a way my family never could. My apartment still safe in the trust with Kevin and Virginia Lane, as co-trustees felt like home again. I repainted the walls, erasing the last of Ethan's and Mia's marker stains, reclaiming every inch. Sometimes late at night, I'd sit on my balcony looking out at the San Antonio skyline and think about what I'd lost. Not just the family I'd walked away from, but the version of myself who'd spent years chasing their approval. I'd grown up believing love meant sacrifice, that I had to give pieces of myself to keep them close. But every time I gave, they took more: my trust, my inheritance, my home. Cutting them off wasn't easy. It felt like carving out a part of my heart. But it was necessary. I'd fought too hard for my peace to let their chaos pull me back. Looking back, I see the lesson clear as day. Protecting your boundaries sometimes means drawing a line no one can cross, even family. It's not about selfishness, it's about survival. My sister's schemes, my parents' blindness taught me that love shouldn't cost you everything. If I hadn't stood up, hadn't locked my apartment in a trust, hadn't walked out of that restaurant, I'd still be trapped, bending to their demands. Now I'm free, not just to live, but to thrive. To anyone listening, I'd say this: guard your heart, your home, your peace. Sometimes the hardest choice, walking away, is the only way to keep them.